Right, so I'm going to talk about Xcavate now, because we've not said Xcavate enough times. So I want to get very real. My co-founder Alex is going to come and say hello in a bit, but he's the real man, he's the real guy. I'm the techie, geeky guy. So we got together with some really bad golf. I tend to hit a lot of trees, he tends to hit quite a few greens. So, you know, between bad rounds, we managed to talk about fractional ownership of real estate. So, I think starting off, the whole point for me was wanting to make real estate affordable and accessible for everyone. I think if you've got kids, or you know, if you're about sort of 25 to 35, you know, living at home, wanting to save up for your own apartment or whatever, it's a real challenge. You could save with a bank account, but you know, the way that real estate increases in value, you're actually losing money over time. So the idea behind Xcavate is that we can fractionalize real estate in small amounts and make it accessible for people, but also make it trustless that someone on the other side of the world with no knowledge about a particular real estate developer, they can invest directly with that developer. So next slide, please. So the problem currently is that either you have to have a large amount of money to invest in a particular property, or you need to go through some third parties like a bank, an estate agent, which all adds fees, times, complexity. So we're trying to solve all that. We're creating this trustless platform where we take the Deloitte credentials, we verify those credentials, so exactly the same credentials that you've used for Polymec. We check the real estate developer, we check their company, so that KYC for the company, KYB for the business, and then we check the asset itself, so KYA. So we say it's simple as KYA, B, and C. So next slide, please. So what we're building is this solution where either using your mobile phone or on a desktop, you can invest as little as £3,000 or dollars, so that the actual asset itself, let's call it a 2-bedroom apartment in London, maybe it's about £300,000. You could probably get a rental income of around about £1,500 a month. Now, the developer knows this, but what we do is we do a check on that amount, on that type of property. So that property would have various different attributes, like the number of bedrooms, the locality, the type of layout, the number of the size of the rooms, etc. And we identify there's an upper and lower band, and does that amount for that property fit into that band? If it doesn't, then that property cannot be listed onto the marketplace. So that's the first check. What we then do is allow the developer to mint the property as a token. So it's called I hate this word, it's a non-fungible token. And all that basically means that it's unique, all right? That's all we need to have an understanding of. So it's a digital way of making the property unique, because the problem with digital things is you can right-click, copy, and then send someone around the world, the other side of the world, exactly the same thing in about 4 or 5 different places. With an NFT, you cannot do that. It's verifiable, and without going into the tech stuff, it's one of a kind. So we know with blockchain it's immutable. All right, so that's the first trustless element. So yeah, we're going into next slide, please. So what we're doing with the Xcavate platform is making it very, very easy and simple for any person with the KYC that's been confirmed and verified to browse the kind of property they want. That might be in London, that might be in Sydney, that might be in New York. Essentially what they're doing is they're spreading their risk over a number of different properties in a number of different countries. Some might go up, some might go down. No one knows what is happening with real estate markets like any other market. It's supply and demand driven. You don't want to invest in China because they've got an oversupply. So our platform would actually say, okay, you cannot list the property because it's not deemed to be of the community's benefit, so the community can have a say on which region we'll go into, so we'll recommend different regions. So for instance, we're starting in London, then we're maybe looking at maybe Madrid or Dubai or Sydney, because they have similar sort of regulations and laws. So what happens is, once the real estate developer has listed this property and the tokens are available to buy, the investor then buys whatever number of tokens they want. That doesn't get transferred until all of the tokens are actually purchased, and then what that does is trigger it triggers an SPV, a special purpose vehicle, which is a limited company to actually be created, which owns the property. But firstly, we need to attribute a lawyer to the SPV to represent all the token holders. So that happens automatically. And then once that transfer of ownership, the title deed has happened, then the funds are then transferred directly into the real estate developer's wallet. So it all happens, let's just say that the property's listed on a Monday, by Tuesday morning it can be sold, and then the whole process starts, and within a matter of days it's all completed and the developer gets their money. So it massively improves the route to market for the developer, and creates a lot of opportunity for the investors. Next slide, please. Looking at the target market, globally it's a huge market, so I won't talk about those numbers. But realistically in the UK, last year there was 210,000 properties, new build properties. We're not obviously going to attack the whole of that market. Alex has got an amazing network of existing developers, and I think some of those are actually here tonight. So we're going to start off with trusted developers that we know what they're building, and we can verify every stage of that build. And then, because of the trustless nature of the protocol, it doesn't matter who the developer is around the world, they won't be able to list unless they have gone through all of the checks. So the market is realistic, and we're going to start off, next slide please, with around about 260 to 300 properties for the first 12 months. Just build up slowly, go into the next region, and then go into commercial properties and other markets. Next slide, please. Looking at how what the landscape looks like in terms of comparison with other platforms. Obviously, you've got Web 2 with Rightmove. They turn over in the region of £300 million a year, and Zillow turn over about $1 billion. So the only thing is they don't do anything trustfully. All they do is present the properties, and then the estate agent actually delivers the rest of the value. But with us, the investors can actually buy direct with our platform. We've got Reality. They're quite large in America, and they're a sort of French-based company, and they've got other parts in Europe. However, again, they're not trustless. They will find the properties, they will put the properties on the platform, and then they will manage the property for you. With our system, once the property has been purchased, then and the title deed has been transferred, the property gets automatically allocated to a letting agent, an approved letting agent that's gone through the KYC and KYB in the region of the property. And then they would manage the property on behalf of the token holders. If they misbehave and don't give the income, rental income, they can be slashed, or they can be voted out by the token holders. That's the first of its kind anywhere. It creates a decentralized organisation. So next slide, please. We've partnered with a number of organisations. Polymec, thank you, David, for wonderful rousing applaud at that in terms of how to get involved if you want to get funding with Xcavate. Kilt are a decentralised identity provider, so the Deloitte credentials are actually produced on the Kilt platform, so we're a partner with Kilt. Tansy are an app chain, so you can produce your own app chain. I don't want to go too technical, but in a couple of hours, as opposed to building from scratch, which is a massive improvement. So we've partnered with them, and that's accelerated our development. Crust are a decentralized storage mechanism, so all of the documents associated with a property can be stored in a bucket, and it's unique to that particular property. So there's a very secure way of storing any documents associated with the property. And Accurast The technical term is Oracle, but basically it's software that talks to things that are off-chain. So when we create the SPV, we talk to Company's House through an API, and that's all done automatically. There's no human intervention, and Accuras do that with, they've repurposed mobile devices to create a network to allow code to be distributed automatically. That's as much as I want to go into the technical stuff, but it's an amazing piece of kit. So that's our partners. Next slide, please. In terms of our tokenomics, we will have a maximum of 100 million tokens, which represents the control and the utility of the system. So we're going to start, we'll go to mainnet at the end of this year, that's the plan. And then what we're looking to do is we'll start off with a little bit of control, and then within a month we'll hand over to a committee, and then we'll fully decentralise over the following year to go into a more community-led organisation. Next slide, please. I mean, the reality is that real estate crosses many boundaries. We could tokenise pretty much anything. Attack the rental market for holidays at Airbnb. You can imagine that if a gym, you can build a gym and you can tokenise its membership, so you can actually own part of the gym and you can take the membership or you can take an income from it. Universities, if your child goes to university, you can tokenise part of a room and then you buy that token for your son or daughter to go to university, so you don't need to worry about their accommodation. Social housing, it's a massive issue. We can tokenise social housing and give people various levels of tokens depending on how much they need at various times in their lifetime. So it's very, very versatile. We can also tokenise the land itself. So at the very start of the land acquisition process, we can tokenise the land. People can invest in the building process and get sort of early access into developments. And it gives real estate developers really good access to funding without the complications of a bank. Next slide, please. This is our roadmap. We're around about the 3/4 mark at the moment. So the next stage now is the Polymech launch, which will give us funding for around about 12 to 18 months. Next slide. In terms of the team, so I'm from a Web 2 background, built applications and websites for 12 years. Before that, I worked for Coca-Cola for 10 years, delivering large infrastructure. Alex has had 23 years in the industry in real estate, worked like in UK. He's got several businesses from real estate agents, letting agents, and new homes. But he's also worked in other parts of Europe and the US. Torsten is one of our advisors. So in terms of, they've launched their own app chain, or sort of the blockchain, which is called Pendulum, and he's been advising us in terms of the various different technical aspects. There's a huge team, and Connor is here, he's one of the main developers. He came with me, or we met at the POLKADOT Blockchain Academy, which is a 5-week intensive residential course in California. So it was a terrible, terrible time. Hated every minute of it. But yeah, we've got loads of developers all around